All righty, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to What Just Happened right here on the Big Red Nation channel. My name is Jason, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what just happened yesterday during Nebraska's 59-7 victory over Houston Christian University. Gonna go over the bad, the good, kind of go over kind of what happened in college football overall this weekend, like I usually do. Not really going to go over the media's reaction like I usually do, because to be honest, everybody this weekend, any podcast, any talk shows, anything that you've listened since yesterday, today, whatever, they're ready to move on to Michigan. And be honest, right there with them. We're going to talk about obviously the Houston Christian game. I am going to go over a little bit. And then, at the end, I'm going to go over a little bit of what happened last night in Las Vegas with the Bud Crawford, Canelo Alvarez fight. And kind of give my thoughts on that a little bit. But yeah, so let's go ahead and dive on into this. Like I said, Huskers pull out the victory again, 59-7. Which, if you guys were paying attention to my preview show, I was pretty close. I, of course, predicted 58-3. Whenever I give my predictions, I'm kind of given like I know 58 might have been an odd score to get to, but I'm kind of thinking more of like, I think we can get about 58 points, 2-3. So that's, I'm usually in my predictions not going to go for exact scores. It's more of like what range of score I think will end up being. That's what I'll usually go with. That's why sometimes you might see some odd numbers like 58-3. So, I think I was pretty close. Now how Houston Christian got the 7 points or got any of their points that I would predict, because I did predict they'd get some. If you remember correctly, I mentioned I think that they would have got a field goal either like in that first drive or two, or in mop-up duty at the end of the game. They kind of got it weird, and what was that? I guess it was the fourth quarter still. But regardless, let's dive on in, talk about some of my thoughts on the game. Let's go ahead and, because there is a couple. Okay, so a lot of people that I have talking about media reaction, a lot of people have talked about, there's not much to take from this game. Like I said, a lot of them were just ready to move on to Michigan. I will dive into Michigan later on this week. So this one I'm going to try to keep on the game. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the negatives. To start off, I'm still a little worried about the red zone offense. A couple of the problems, I think I brought this up in the last video during the Akron game, was it kind of felt sometimes like either Rule or Holgerson, or maybe the combination of both. Whenever we get into the red zone, it's almost like they're trying certain plays for the future. They're not really, it doesn't feel like once they get to the red zone, it doesn't feel like how they're calling the offense all the way up until we get into the red zone. So it almost feels like they're getting in there and they're like, hey, let's just try these handful of plays that we feel are red zone go-to plays for the future. Let's see if we can connect. Let's see how they look against, another team. Because all of a sudden they get in the red zone and all the plays kind of feel discombobulated. They don't feel like they're stacking on top of each other. They don't feel related. They don't feel like they're really going out there trying to, obviously they're trying to score. That's not what I mean, but where let's say next week against Michigan, or against Cincinnati, where the plays would feel like they're going to play off each other to eventually get in. These just kind of felt like random plays that they're like, okay, hey, let's try this. Let's see if this works. Hey, let's see how this looks against live action, stuff like that. So part of me thinks that could be the case. That is kind of how the offense looks once they get there. But like I said, it also happened in that Cincinnati game, which I don't believe they would take that same frame of mind into that type of game against that level of competition. We did struggle still in there to really like push it in. So it does worry me a little bit. whenever we're heading now into conference play, playing against much better competition. So that is something that stuck out to me, especially since it happened on that first drive and coming after a play that should have been a touchdown. If Dylan just leads them a little bit better, has a little bit more touch on that ball, well, maybe a little more zip on that ball, not necessarily touch, because I think that was the problem. I think he tried to put too much touch on it. And that still could be lingering effects from that Lindenmeyer overthrow against Illinois last season. Because his deep balls they just feel like, and they showed the replay on the telecast from like a camera from the end zone, right? And you did see it. It looked like, Dylan didn't fully step in to the throw. It was just kind of like this weird kind of half step, kind of up, like he's overly trying to place it instead of just throwing the ball and having Dane run underneath it and boom, touchdown. So there should have been a touchdown if he just leads them a little bit better. And I understand the win because the ball did look a little wobbly as it's thrown. That's usually not how Dylan's throws look. So I get win could have been a little bit of a factor. Get that. Okay. I'm not saying that, I'm not a quarterback guru, but, I know enough about watching football and playing it a little bit that, you can tell whenever a quarterback fully steps through and tries to get the ball down deep and somebody that's trying to put a little touch on it. So that's kind of how that came off. So you go from that to a couple just bad plays. And then you kick a field goal. So again, at least you get points. You always want to at least get points if you're down there. But you want those to be touchdowns. And especially against an FCS school, those have to be touchdowns. You're out from the 5, it has to happen. Now I'm not counting in the fourth quarter whenever we had like our 4th and 5th running backs in. Just because, they probably get not much practice at that. That part, like, yes, again, definitely want to get those in, but that's not the part that worries me. It was more of just the drives that were happening in the first half with the first team. Another kind of negative, I guess, or worry that I still have coming out of this game is getting home runs from the running backs. You started seeing a little bit, Emmett had a couple really, really good runs last week. I think even Quentin had one good one in the second half last week. And in like they had some good runs in this game, but I'm talking about that pop it out, boom, 45-yard touchdown, a home run. Still outside of the Akron game, haven't really seen that. I'd like to see that a little bit more because, what that means is like if you're hitting the home runs big against the lower competition, like in Akron, like this on a more consistent basis, you're probably going to see, again, maybe not full-blown home runs as in like 40, 50-yard touchdowns against competition like Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, whoever. But you're going to see maybe more often, instead of the 5 or 10 yards that are going to be our biggest runs of a game, we're going to start seeing the 15 to 20 to 25, 30-yard runs. I think so. Seeing only a couple against Akron kind of has me worried that it's going to be to get 100 yards against a Michigan or any other kind of bigger competition. It's going to be rough. Like it's going to take the 20 plus carries to get to 100 yards rushing. Now, whenever you got a quarterback like Dylan that can, and some talented wide receivers that we have, maybe you don't need it to be successful on offense. But I think it'd help. I think it'd help a lot, So definitely the lack of the home runs kind of worries me a little bit. And then in this game specific, after last week's, halftime speech, I think Rule kept kind of the pedal to the metal, especially in the third quarter. But, towards the very, very end, where we really had some easy chances, very short fields, to go bust in at least another touchdown or two, Instead of keep running the offense with Jalen Gramstad and Marcos Davila or Davila or however you say his last name. I've heard it like 100 different ways now. I guess I should just go onto the website on the Huskers.com, right, and actually have it listen to it. I guess I should do that. But Marcos and Gramstad, it was just run up the middle, 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 run up the middle. I would have liked to see him still run the offense. Why not? Probably again, it could be because they don't really know the offense very well due to lack of practice. But still, I don't know. You have this whole conversation or this whole speech last week about, make them respect you and this, and this, and I don't know. Maybe he felt like he got that Houston Christian was showing that respect, so he was going to show the respect back. I don't know. But again, if we're going to preach killer instinct one week, let's keep that going. But that was the negatives. Again, there's not a lot, right? You can't really take a whole lot out of this game as far as negatives, right? You start really going after negatives in this game, it's going to be really big nitpicking. I guess the only other thing would be kicking the kickoffs out of bounds. It's happened once a game. It's happened at least once every game. They might be trying to work on something, but at the same time, I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, maybe once we get in a conference play, now that has not worked, let's not continue to do that. Let's just cut it out. Just kick it down the middle. Do what you want to do that way. So let's go ahead and get into the positives from yesterday's game. And I think number one, it looked like last week. Good. We have not had this type of back-to-back dominant style games like this in a very long time. Very long time. Kind of right before I went live, you know what? Now I think I'm going to get the date wrong or the year wrong, but they just said we scored 50 points back-to-back for the first time. I want to say it said since 2007. But I might have gotten that wrong. If I got that wrong, if somebody else knows the exact year, leave me a comment, let me know. But we haven't done it, but besides the scoring of 50 points, because that might have even happened in a win and a loss, or maybe in 2 losses that year in 07, because that was the year Joe Gans came in and our offense would score a ton of points, but we'd still lose. But to have these back-to-back dominant style wins like this, man, you probably have to go even further back, where we just dominated. And again, lower competition for sure, but we haven't been doing that to lower competition in a very long time. So I'm still looking at that as a huge positive. The fact that they could still get back up after doing it one week and staying focused enough to do it the next week is a great sign that the program is moving forward, that the players are really buying in and making this culture a winning culture program and doing the right things. So I take that overall as the biggest positive. And I wouldn't say this is a negative. It's just kind of more of an explanation, though. There is a part of this game that it didn't feel as much fun as last week. And I think a lot of it had to do with is about mid-second quarter. Houston Christian definitely went, okay, we need to get out of this game. And they would just stand there. I mean, they'd be up at the line, like ready to go, but then just stand there until there was like 5 seconds left on the play clock and then snap it at 1. And so it was just like, it just started becoming a really boring, long, drawn out game. Because they were really trying to shorten up the game. Which, I guess the positive of that is in that first quarter, we put it on them and they quit. For lack of better terms, they kind of quit. Now, obviously, in the second half, they put in that redshirt freshman running back. God, probably going to butcher his first name. I think it's like Xavier Edwards. Edwards is definitely his last name. But he's redshirt running back. And he was good, man. That dude was running hard. That dude was still trying to play as hard as he can to do something in the game. He was playing hard. He was a good running back, man. And especially with the way our coaches have like this kind of weird working relationship with the Houston Christian program from doing satellite camps down there and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this offseason we're he's becoming a backup running back for us. But I would say one thing too about the what makes that a positive too with the whole them slowing it down is I didn't feel though like our team fell asleep. We might have, especially at home, and maybe people in the crowd. You know what? I don't know. People that were there might say something different, but it definitely came across on TV like they weren't getting as loud there at the end of the second half, and then definitely end of the second quarter, and then into the second half. The second half was definitely very quiet. It felt, unless there was like the random big play, like a Cortez Mills doing his thing, getting that big touchdown. So I would say that's a good thing, right? Team kept its focus, did a really good job with that. Another positive is definitely that the defense looked to be improved, and they've done that every game. And I know that's easy to say. Of course, they've improved because every week they've played somebody down. But again, especially with a young of a defense as we have, especially with the up front guys, the front seven, it's good. It's still a good thing because it's showing them that they can do this. It's showing them that, hey, you can just start building on the success. And it's important. I don't want to downplay that. I do think it's very important to still do these successful, really good things. Get these sacks, get the strip sack with Williams picking up the fumble and running it in for a touchdown. Because now they visualize it. They can see the success and they can keep doing it. Again, we won't know the real effect of this stuff until we get to next week with Michigan, and then in 3 weeks, Michigan State and all that stuff. But just analyzing it, I would think that this is going to be a positive effect on the players and on this team. Again, another pretty good specials teams day outside of the kicking outside the thing, kicking the kickoffs out of bounds. There was like kind of one decent kind of return by Houston Christian that obviously don't want to let them have too many of those. And then Isaiah Mosey had a great return. Probably should have been for a touchdown. I don't know what he saw or thought he saw or didn't see, but kind of looked like all of a sudden he was about to go break one, and then all of a sudden kind of turned back and then kind of found himself kind of surrounded and then got tackled. So, I think we need a little more killer instinct with that on that side, but overall, you got to love the special teams getting better compared to the last several years. Another positive is the Huskers went 6 quarters shutting out their opponent. That's a good thing. That first team defense did what they were supposed to do and shut out their opponent while they were on the field. 6 quarters, they shut out. So that was, I was trying to look this up and when the last streak a defense had where they kept the team scoreless. And I don't know if I just was wording it weird or wrong, but Google and AI kind of kept popping back up like, did you mean this? And like I couldn't really get a good answer. But the closest thing I could get was that the Huskers' longest streak of keeping their opponents scoreless, the longest streak, not the last time that they had a good long streak or what was their most recent long streak. The longest streak is what I got back. And that was back in 1902, where they were never scored upon all season in 9 games. That's pretty cool. So yeah, so that's the positives from the game. I thought, overall the game was fine, fun, nice, relaxing. Didn't have to think about it type of weekend, which is great. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look around college football. I'm going to share screen here. Of the scores of college football. All right. Here we are. All right. So let's take a look here. Some of the games. All right. And I like to do this because it kind of helps, I think, give a good perception or perspective on what we've done. How to maybe help digest some of the things that we're seeing from our team. Right. So you got Florida, who began the season ranked, now has lost 2 games. DJ Lagway, who's supposed to be, so much better than Dylan Raiola, only threw for 5 interceptions. Count that, 5. They lost to LSU. Oregon, this wasn't as close as this, but, playing in Evanston at 11, that's tough. Okay. It's such a sleepy game. South Florida, unfortunately, lost to Miami. Great game right here with Georgia, Tennessee. But trying to get to some comparable games of Nebraska, Akron, Nebraska, Houston Christian. Texas, UTEP. Everybody remembers UTEP from last year, right? Won 49-7. Texas with, the second coming of Christ, Arch Manning, 27-10. And let's see here. Let's look at how did Arch Manning do? 11-25 for 114 yards, 4.6 yards average, 1 TD, 1 interception. Again, we're going to beat this drum until, Dylan starts getting some respect. A&M Notre Dame game was a really good game. Nate Borkature caught the winning touchdown because, of course, he did. Not going to lie, whenever he caught that, I was like, hey, what was that for us, man? Come on. Not that he was, bad for us, but, every Husker fan that would have seen that was probably going, he never did that. I would have never thought he was going to be able to be that type of player for Nebraska. Not that, he was always going to be bad, but Vanderbilt 3-0 whooped up on 11th ranked South Carolina. Again, guys, I'm going to become a broken record on all this stuff. This is why preseason rankings are garbage and need to go away. And I've not always been a guy that hated preseason rankings. A lot of times I like it. Why? Because it gives us something to talk about during the offseason. Can't wait to see those first preseason rankings. It kind of gets you revved up for the season. And, and at that time, it's there wasn't really playoffs for most of the time that I was enjoying these preseason rankings. But now, especially I mentioned this many times before, but now, especially with the transfer portal, teams are changing so many players season to season that how can you have any guess on how that team is going to be going into the year? Georgia Tech with a barn burner, last second 55-yard field goal to beat 12th ranked Clemson. Again, started the season off 4. They're 1-2. See here. Let's go on down. Alabama beat Wisconsin. Michigan beat Central Michigan. Now, see, they beat them 63-3. I would put this close to an equivalency of us and Akron, right? I think this is kind of close enough to be their Akron game. And, they won 63-3, right? They basically did kind of the same thing that we did. Close. They didn't shut them out. But I think Central Michigan might be a little bit better than Akron, but they're under a first-year coach, and You know how those things kind of go. But yeah, so again, bunch of close games, um, bunch of fun stuff, bunch of upsets, all that's kind of stuff. So it kind of helps again keep stuff in perspective for how Huskers are doing. And one thing I didn't get to, actually, I forgot to get to that. Cincinnati won like 70-0. I know it was Northwestern State, but again, since Nebraska, the 2 games since the Nebraska Cincinnati game, Sorsby has gone 32 of 39 for 586 yards in the air with 8 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He threw for 69 yards against Nebraska's secondary. Again, put it in perspective for you guys. Maybe our defense is pretty damn good, and they're just playing really damn good against bad competition. Maybe they're still going to play really good against good competition because maybe they are just really, really good. I don't know. Again, this is why we play the games, though, just to see. All right. I'm going to make this kind of quick, right? Just because there's not much to talk about, so I'm just going to make this kind of a quick stream. So let's go ahead and talk about last night's Bud Crawford fight. I really don't watch boxing, don't watch UFC fights or anything like that. But it was on Netflix, and I've got Netflix, so I was like, okay, let's tune in. Then, of course, like I'm almost falling asleep because it didn't start until 11 o'clock. And then as soon as the match started, man, I was wide awake. And what a great, great fight. I thought Crawford was awesome. Kind of owned pretty much that whole boxing match. Even the rounds that they gave to Canelo, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. Okay. All right. And then once they announced him as the winner by unanimous decision, man, I was so happy because, to be honest with you, it just feels like, again, I'm kind of like, I do kind of get caught up in this whole like, okay, if this happens and this happens, this happens, this happens, I bet this could mean like this is going to happen. This is going to give us like good mojo and all this stuff. And it was, for this game, he really built up Crawford. They were all wearing Crawford shirts supporting Bud. Matt Rule and Troy Daniel were at the game. And I was like, if he wins and becomes like the greatest boxer in the world, he's got to bring this team out. And then it's going to be like the Colorado game, and maybe we're just going to come out blazing and kill it, and we're going to beat Michigan. And what do you know? Bud wins. So step 1 is done. Now let's hope that Bud comes to the game on Saturday, leads us out against Michigan, and let's go do to them what we did at Colorado. Let's go take Michigan down. Let's become ranked. Let's go kill it. I cannot wait to dive into the Michigan game. Probably going to do that show Wednesday or Thursday. Kind of depends on my work schedule. But just wanted to come on here, do something real quick, get off, head to bed, because I got a really long day tomorrow for work. But anyway, guys, thanks again. Please like, share, go follow me on X, Twitter, right here. There's my handle, BRNPod25. My name is Jason again. So everybody have a good week, and I'll see you soon.